am Amy Vetter, and welcome to the Breaking Beliefs podcast. This valuable time is for you to pause in your day and go on your own self-journey. Discover the beliefs that are holding you back from living your best life at work and at home. Learn from the guests on this show as they share their inspirational stories on how they found ways to break internal beliefs that were no longer serving them. Because if you believe you can, you will. And our podcast begins now. Welcome to this episode of Breaking Beliefs, where I interview Marin Bright. She is the founder and CEO of Smart Meetings. Smart Meetings is a monthly print magazine, digital news service, and elevated events that serve an engaged event professional community. She has extensive experience in publishing, meetings, and hospitality industries. Marin has received numerous awards, including the PCMA Legend Award, the Western Publishing Association Distinction in Leadership Award, the prestigious Folio Awards, where she has twice received the Top Women in Media, and she's been inducted in the Hall of Fame for Women in Events as a Woman of Influence. My discussion with Marin starts with how she was once told by her sister that her specialty is lunch. This passion that comes naturally for her to connect people and help to create relationships has ended up being her secret sauce to her success. Hi, this is our next episode of the Breaking Beliefs podcast, and I'm with Marin Bright of Smart Meetings. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Well, thank you for having me.
And I'd love for you to just kind of give a little background to our listeners of who you are, what you do, and how you got there.
Sure. So I'm the CEO of Smart Meetings, and I started Smart Meetings, 19 years ago. And prior to that, I graduated from Mills College. I mean, you can go all the way back. My first job was at the Hyatt Hotel, and I went into that because my sister told me my specialty was lunch. It turns out that I am really good at lunch, and I was good at lunch in college, and that was my specialty. Anyway, and then I went to the Mandarin and a couple of other hotels, and the earthquake hit in San Francisco, and I lived in the Marina. Not a great time to be in San Francisco. Nobody would believe that nobody wanted to come to San Francisco in 1989.
Right.
I got married that year and lived in the Marina, so had a lot of broken glass, and decided at that time it was so hard to sell San Francisco. People wouldn't imagine. Nobody. And after traveling around all over the country, trying to get people to come to San Francisco, I thought, well, I'm going to stop doing this. And I had a degree in journalism. And so I went, I wanted to stay and travel. I'm very passionate about hotels. When I go on vacation, I go to see hotels. I love it. It's like my thing.
So you're like a foodie, but a hotelie.
I'm a hotelie. I was a hotelie long before people were hoteliers. And I know, really, in France, I'd go to the Ritz for tea. I mean, there were monumental things. And, when I was coming along, nobody ate at a hotel. I mean, you had breakfast at the hotel. And I think it was Campton Place and I think also Kimpton, that really made the hotel. I remember we walked around the block like 14 times, and then we thought, this place looks good. And we were like, oh, you know what? We're staying here. We're at our hotel. Anyway, long story short, I love journalism, and I loved empowering. I loved hotels. I love teaching and giving people ideas. And I love connecting people. It's a real passion. I do it naturally. If I have a party, people at my wedding left that didn't know each other to go out to dinner, who are now best friends.
Oh, that's
so I'm really,
cool.
I'm really proud of my ability to
create
relationships. And I think that, publishing and what I do now and what it's evolved into in the media business really is connecting. I mean, we're connecting readers, and we're connecting with the hoteliers, CVBs, the suppliers of all sorts. And so to be able to do that on a grander scale in the way of publishing is so exciting to me.
Yeah, so let's go back.
Okay.
So when you were a little girl, you wanted to be a journalist?
When I was a little girl, I spent a lot of time reading fashion magazines. I did, and I worked at Neiman Marcus, Saks Fifth Avenue, I. Magnons, Joseph Magnons, and so my mother was a professional model, and I was really into fashion. Okay. And I was actually going to go into fashion, and I got hired, I can't believe I turned this down, by Victoria's Secret out of college, because they were based in San Francisco, and they were just like one store, and I thought, oh, I've got to do something much bigger. Anyway, I didn't go into fashion. It wasn't retail. I think I kind of did my whole stint so long in retail and spent all my money at the store, so I wasn't ever going to make any money. So I thought, and I love travel, and I grew up, my father on the other side was a geologist, and so we traveled all over the world looking at rocks. I know a lot about rocks, and a gemologist, and we stayed in lots of motels, and the thing that my dad always appeased me with was, okay, you get to pick, because I'd spend, and it was motels, and you spend all your time by the pool, so you get to pick the motel. So I kind of got into that side of it. So by the time going full circle, I loved magazines, and I decided travel was probably more my passion than fashion. But I wanted to dress up and go there.
There you go. There you go. You got it. You bring it all together.
Yeah, that's right.
So did your parents try to guide you in any one direction?
No, not really. Not really. Just my parents were really both very on the cutting edge as far as nutrition and vitamins and meditation. We have yoga. I was doing yoga 50 years ago in full tights in an old woman's living room when people didn't even know what it was. My mother ordered a masseuse into our house. I grew up in Reno, and the clubs often had like a massage place, which was kind of unheard of. Right. So my parents were always open, I guess would be the point, to trying new things. They were both entrepreneurs. My mother ended up going to work for the sheriff's department and becoming, because back then, after the fashion thing, when she went back to work as kids, she was a secretary. That's what women did. And they needed a woman to extradite prisoners, so she became a deputy. And my parents were always forward-thinking, trying something new, and entrepreneur. And then she left there and became a private investigator, which ran
what a story
entrepreneur.
She has.
My father left Kennecott and Anaconda and all the huge mining companies and started and discovered one of the biggest mines in the world. Quite famous geologist.
Wow, that's pretty exciting. So you decide to go into journalism.
I did, yeah.
And then where did you start? Like, what were you doing?
What did I start? I started at the San Francisco Business Times, and I always developed their travel section. So I built out this huge travel section. Then I went to San Francisco Magazine. I started local, and then I got hired by a company. It changed a lot but the name is still the same, Meeting News. And that was a big publishing company. And then I went into the incentive side, and I started business and incentives, and I really liked incentives, and I worked for a lot of high-end hotels, so I really understand the incentive business. And then I went to another magazine that worked for a woman. It was a little newspaper called Meetings California, and it was sold to a family. The son had gone to Stanford, and they needed somebody to run it, so I ran that, and now it's called Meetings Today, and I was there for 10 years, and I took it from a newspaper to a magazine, and people used to always say to me, this must be your own. I'd miss my bus all the time. I gave it my heart and soul. I loved it, and I kind of had that in my blood. My parents always treated their careers that way, and after enough people said that, I thought, maybe I should be doing this for myself, because I am. I was wiring the phone system through their ceiling, and I was going on all the sales calls and writing the articles. And when you start your own company, like I started Smart Meetings, that's what you do.
Exactly.
I did every sales call. I wrote the stories. I did the production. I sat behind the computer. I picked the colors. I branded it. And you just kind of dig in and do what you got to do.
So, like, with the job that you had before you started Smart Meetings, how did you navigate that? Because it sounds like you were kind of you had to fit into a lot of roles. So, how did you learn? By the way,
no women were ever doing this. When I became a publisher, there was one other woman, and I have to say back then, my mother was very much for ERA. We always had ERA signs. My mom's favorite pen was a woman without a man is like a fish without a bicycle. Don't tell any men. I said, and I really didn't like the feminist. I went to Mills, which is an all-women's college, and a lot of feminism was anti-men, and I don't like that.
Exactly.
I don't like that.
Yeah.
I think men are great, and women just need to lift each other up. They're just different powers. They don't have to be a man to have power. And I've always, and I had a great example of that in my mother, who was so ahead of her time as far as, you know, being a woman in the sheriff's department. So, you know, for me, there wasn't really any other women doing it, but I don't think that was an issue in our hospitality industry. It may have been an issue in others, but certainly there was a lot of times when, you know, being blonde and being a woman, people didn't take me as seriously. Sure.
Yeah.
But I always, you know, maybe my fashion background, I always kept my feminine touch. I never, I don't believe in wielding power as a negative thing. I believe in power being a positive thing and really bringing the feminine side to that. And I always have. I've had great examples of that.
Well, and that's interesting because I know at a point in my career, I was actually told to look plainer.
Interesting.
And I would be more accepted that way.
Right.
And I tried it for a while.
The lipstick off.
Exactly. And then I was so miserable.
Yeah, you gotta be you.
Yeah,
you gotta be you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how did you have the confidence to do what you did?
You know, it's really interesting. It was right after the dot-com burst, and it was right after 9/11, and I had left. And I was trying actually to have a baby, and there was a number of things that were happening in my personal life, and wanted to take a little time off. And then it was kind of a Jerry Maguire. A couple of the employees left as well. And I kept saying, come on, we can do something together. We can do something together. And so I said, okay, we'll do something kind of on the side. And, you know, I don't know, to be a true entrepreneur, if anybody ever starts out going, I'm going to do this and do that. And then next thing you know, it took off. And then we did the action kit and people were buying into it. And it was kind of a unique product. And then
what was the action kit?
The action kit was more of like a card deck. It was for hotels during a time when the economy was really down, like almost a coupon card. Okay. And it was a unique idea. Nobody had done anything. So I started off probably with the first lead generation of any kind.
How did you know to do that?
I love hotels, and I wanted to have them get business, and I wanted, it was like a big bingo card that I was familiar with, and I'm really passionate about getting hotels business. I was always, people used to always say when I worked at the hotel, how come you're the one booking all the rooms? And I'd be there all night, and I was just into it, you know, I was just loved it. So, you know, when you love something, the ideas flow. I think it might have been the second a bottle of wine on Valentine's Day with my husband when I thought I have this great idea. And then, you know, my Brenda was on my side, and I had a couple of other people that had worked with me for a long time that wanted to join in. And we didn't even really know. We'd laugh about what people thought they were buying anyway. The whole thing took off. But what happens is you end up getting in it before you know you're in it. You're in it. And I used to look around at the dot-coms and they were other people's money. And nobody would do what nobody would do what I did. I mean, I got up and went to the office at 3 a.m. because I couldn't sleep, and I was thinking of all the things I had to do. And we mortgaged our house, and I sold my car to make payroll, and I cashed in my 401k. Yeah. And at one point I had $250,000 on my credit cards. I can't believe I had that much credit at the time. And so there gets to be a point of no return where I kind of, then what, the 9/11 wasn't so bad, but then there was SARS, and then there was the war, and then there was the Bush and the whole thing going on. And, you know, next thing you know, you can't get out. You've got to keep going. Yes. You've got to keep going forward. So one foot in front of another. And, you know, I've been through a lot of ups and downs. I've seen a lot of economies, and I think that resilience has to reign.
Well, and I think it's a couple things you said. I mean, resilience is, especially when running a business, you know, every day is a new day, and you have no idea what's going to come at you.
Totally.
But
a staff of 20.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, but the one thing you said is having that bigger purpose, because I think when it's just about selling or getting the sales, but you don't really understand who you're serving or why you're serving.
Right.
That's where it's like, no, this really matters to me, what I'm doing to me.
It's kind of like the analogy of people who go into music because they want to be famous, but they don't love the music.
Yes.
I feel like, you know, and I'm very proud of this at Smart Meetings. We've been the first, and a lot of it is just so driven by my passion. I love what I do. It was very painful, but you just keep, when you're going through hell, keep going, you know, the saying, and we were really, keep going. And, you know, out of that grew, we were the first consumer looking magazine, and we were imitated by so many. And we were the first to, like I said, the lead gen, and then our website, and we were imitated. And these one-on-one appointments that you experience here today, we were one of the first doing that as well. So always
one step ahead,
and one step really with the passion, the purpose of bringing more to our customers and to the industry.
Right.
That's all it's about to me.
So you started out with the action cards, and I always think this is interesting about owning a business, because it's been that way for me with all the businesses.
Sure.
That you go in thinking it's one thing.
Yeah.
And then the customers come and tell you it's something else. So
Totally.
what were some beliefs you had walking in that you're like, well, I got to let that go?
You know, it's so funny. I just won this award and I couldn't believe, in Los Angeles, called the Maggies, and it's like, you know, Men's Journal and all kinds of top magazines of consumer, and they picked me to be the winner. And I went up to the podium, and I really, you know, I was so tired, and you're running a company, I didn't even really make a big deal out of it. And I got up there and I leaned on the podium and I said, I went in this to be in publishing, and really now I have a webinar and a website and a newsletter, and I have a e-blast, and I have events. And I said, really, this is great, but I'm tired. I gotta go to bed. This has been a long night. So, you know, and everything, you know, if you don't change, and it is speed to change, and that's what being a small company has always been able to enable me, is we can pivot. We pivot quick, and I can pivot, and I can move people, and people who don't move with me, well, they don't stay on the ship, they fall overboard. And that has been a big key to our success, is that you have to be able to, the world, everything's changing. You know, look at Uber and taxi cabs, and the phone book is gone, and everything that you once knew. And my survival skills are pretty honed. And I think that I also really, really enjoy bringing new things to this industry.
Well, and you're diversified. If you just depended on print, you know, you've got all these other avenues that you're working. So
but I do want to say millennials are really into print. I just learned that everything that is old is new again.
I still like
they like albums, and that's how I'm hearing that. So anybody who thinks print is dead is really missing it, because
I agree.
Nobody likes retargeting, and nobody likes being Big Brother and being watched on the internet.
Well, and sometimes it's an overwhelming amount of information. It's kind of nice to just sit with a magazine
and chill.
Yeah. So you talked about before, so you started this business, you're growing. Now you're responsible for people.
Yeah, there's that.
So how did that change as far as like the way you became a leader, and what kind of things did you have to do that you never thought you'd do?
Well, a lot of things you thought you wouldn't do. That, you know, it takes a long time to get a great team, and I have a great team now, about 40 people. And we're based in Sausalito. And I think that there's people who either make your life easier in your career, or they make your life harder. And, you know, we hopefully get good at picking those out that are making it harder and cut them out sooner. But sometimes, honestly, I've put more effort internally than I would have liked to right my ship of those under me that didn't share my passion, that were there to trip me up, that really just came for a free ride, or they thought Smart Meetings was kind of a famous place to be. So they, you know, it's funny, I've talked to people at NBC who say they have the same problem. People think they're going to get on the free ride or something, but an entrepreneurial company needs every oar in the water.
Absolutely.
And it's hard to keep that pace. And yet if we don't, I really struggle with that, is like, if you don't keep that pace, we won't survive. On the other hand, I can see some of my staff are burning out. So it's hard. You have to be able to ebb and flow and juggle that. I'm taking 4 of them to the Cavallo Point next week to the spa.
Oh, very
So
nice.
I try to build in a few things like that.
Yeah, well, and those are we talked about today. Celebrate small wins.
Celebrate small wins.
Yeah, so that they know they're being appreciated.
All the time. Yeah, we have an appreciation every Monday where we draw people, and everybody gets to recognize everybody, and then we have a drawing for a prize, and we do a lot of things to keep people happy.
So what are some of, like, if you can think of like leadership style, like what are some things that you try to bring in as values or ways for your staff to really learn from your experience?
Yeah, I am a doer. I just could never sit in an ivory tower and point my finger and have people do everything. Even at the event, I'm picking up the napkins and I'm pointing
rolling
people.
I'm
just rolling up my sleeves because I think that's true leadership. I don't think that wielding a heavy stick is a good idea. There are, everybody has a different style of how to be motivated. It's not only for me as a leader, but how they're going to be receptive. And we do a lot in our company. It's called the McQuigg Skills Assessment, where you can find out what style somebody is. And so if I'm a driver, then I tend to be more bottom line, which, by the way, if I'm an amiable, I know if I go to an amiable and I don't talk about their kids and their dogs and that kind of thing, then they can't hear anything.
Right.
And, everybody, I do believe everybody is doing their best.
Absolutely.
So you have to be able to give people the opportunity to make mistakes. We're extremely on the edge with risk. I empower my employees to take risks. I reward their risks. Of course, we've grown. Of course, I've had to let go of many things, and it's been a joy and a delight to see people flourish under the Smart Meetings umbrella. And I'm really trying to get myself, it's really interesting. There was a time when all I wanted was to be in the spotlight. Now I'm trying to remove myself and get more spotlight. It's kind of crazy how the world works
right?
Like that,
exactly.
Right? So, anyway, we've got a good team, and I think leadership is getting in and doing. That we have a saying, I'll do it, and you tell me what I did, and give me feedback. You do it, I'll tell you what you did, and I'll give you feedback. Then you do it, and I won't even be there watching, and you just tell me what happened, and then after a while, you just do it.
Right.
And I have a lot of people who are just doing it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And if they're not, then
if they're not,
work with that person.
Well, if they're not, we're too lean.
Exactly.
We don't have a lot of fat.
Yeah. So I like to end with some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
You pick a category.
Okay.
Okay. So the category is either family and friends, money, spiritual, or health.
I'll go for family and friends for 100.
Okay. All right. So in family and friends, things or actions I don't have that I want.
I wish I had more friends. I think that I think it's an entrepreneurial syndrome where you spend so much time working when I'm not working. I'm with my kid or doing, tasks that you have to do to keep your life going, your personal life going. So, I wish I had more of them.
Yeah.
And I had more time with my family.
Yeah. Exactly. Things or actions I do have that I want.
I do have my mother and my son. And my mother is she's turned 88 and she's got Alzheimer's, and I want her to remember. I'm going to go visit her next. I want her to remember she was always such a big part of my life. I want her to stick around for a while longer, mentally and physically, but it's hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
And she was such an example for you.
Such an example and such a spark, such a dynamo to have her. I tell the story over and over.
Yeah. Just her pivot from fashion model to detective.
Yeah.
Okay, so things or actions I don't have that I don't want with family or friends.
I'm sorry, tell me that again.
So things I don't have that I don't want.
I don't want gossip with people. I don't want shallow and superficial people. I don't want competitive people in my life. I don't want backstabbing, and I don't have it because I've gotten really good at my radar for things that I don't want. I don't have a lot of time, and I'm not willing to settle for phony and and people that aren't truly on my side.
Yeah. Okay, last question. Things or actions that I do have that I don't want with my family or friends.
things that I do have that
you
I
don't
don't want. I still have a husband. I'm not sure where that's going. Oh, it had to be. Yeah, stay tuned for the day. But, you know, I think that, life is so many, roll with the punches, what you have, what you don't have, wishing it was different. I think a lot of that is my state of mind,
Yeah.
and I can try to make everybody else different. That's never worked very well for me. So,
yeah, that's great. So, anything you want people to take away from this conversation or to know about smart meetings or some lessons that you want to make sure that they walk away with from your story?
I think that taking risks, I would really are tough and scary, and I've taken a ton of them, and I've been scared to death, and they've been rewarded if you keep going and don't give up. I would really say don't give up, because I never thought I would have a company as successful as mine, and I'm really proud of what we do, and I'm proud of, and I would say never compromise on quality. It's always been my motto: quality, quality, quality. I won't cut corners, and I won't settle for second. It's never good enough. We push ourselves. We strive for excellence, and I do too. And I think that is like In-N-Out Burger, quality you can taste. It's in my DNA.
Yeah.
It's in my DNA, and I want my customers to get the best of us, and I want them to feel aligned and proud to work with Smart Meetings. I think Smart Meetings, my team, what we do delivers. We're the best magazine, and we're the best website. We're the best events. People tell me that all the time, and I'm very proud of that.
Yeah. So, for those of you not watching the video, we are at the Golden One Center.
Yes, we are at the Golden
in
One.
Sacramento, California, at one of the Smart Meetings events. And you're also living one of the other things you talked about that was so important to you, of creating relationships. And so you've been able to take a print magazine but find a way to still live your purpose by bringing all these different people together and having these relationships that you facilitate that brings, everybody happiness. So congratulations.
That makes me happy. I like making people happy. That's important to me.
Yeah. So thank you so much for taking this time today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
In our mindful moments for this episode, I would like to step back and reflect on some of the things that Marin brought up during our discussion about the importance of understanding what our belief systems are, how they were created, and how it actually strings throughout our lives. So she talked about her passion of really connecting people and travel. And when we talked about it, really stepped back to look at her mom really getting her interested in fashion magazines, and that's really where she started getting the passion for journalism. And her father being a geologist and giving her the excitement of choosing motels on their travels. And it's these little things that each of us do that maybe we don't even realize, whether it's with our children or the people around us, that spark ideas that we could never imagine that person taking further, where she's got parents that have two totally different occupations. But because they involved her and she started getting interested in little things that they did, it helped her to connect who she was going to be and really connect to what her purpose is in life and what her passions are. And when we get to understanding what our passions are, things just don't feel like work. So when she's talking about, I love being in hotels, I love traveling. So if I am helping the hotel industry, it doesn't feel like work. So it doesn't mean she has to work in the hotel. It means that she's a part of the industry and helping it grow, and it's still serving her purpose and her passion. And it's important for us to take that time and understand what our purpose and passion is. A lot of times we spend time on our business goals and setting those each year, but we don't necessarily step back and say, what is my purpose? And then as I'm putting my goals in place for my business or in my career, how does it align back to my overall purpose and passion? And with Marin, she had the confidence to understand that this is what made her excited, and it didn't feel like work when she was connecting people and elevating others. She also spoke a lot about being an entrepreneur, and I think there were important messages, not just as an entrepreneur, but as a leader, that sometimes leaders can go in different directions of how they lead, right? That we are an expert in something and we become a leader because of it, but don't realize the people side that we need to understand with leadership. Or we feel because we're a leader that, as Marin put it, we can sit there and point to everyone to do different things. I think when we're authentic as a leader, we're in it with our people, that we are paying attention to their experiences. We're open to listening to what's going on in their day and their encounters with other customers or staff and so forth. And we do dig in and roll up our sleeves when we need to. And, she made the statement, get in and do it, because a lot of times we wait for someone else to do things, and then the time has passed of an opportunity that could have been a bigger opportunity for us in our career or for our business because we're waiting on something else. But sometimes it just takes us to jump in and do it. Now, the other thing she talked about was resilience. And in order to be a leader or to run a business, we have to have that belief in our overall purpose of what we are doing and be resilient to all the things that we can't even predict that will happen in our business, in our workday, and so forth, and be able to step back, assess it, and figure out how we're going to move forward. But the thing is, we can't overanalyze or get into paralysis analysis. We've got to keep moving to stay ahead. And that is all about innovation. One of the things that she brought up is one of her secrets for success is really always staying one step ahead. And this is a really big decision point anyone has to make. Are you going to be the imitator, or are you going to be the person that spearheads change? And if you're going to be that person that spearheads change, that means you're going to have to be okay when people imitate you along the way, because you're already ready for your next best thing. And the only way for you to be ready for your next best thing is to have a team, have a community that supports you in your ideas, but also be open to research and thinking about all the different things that you can encounter. And as you saw in her business, that she had to keep changing the way her business worked until the point where she's looking back and going, wow, we're offering all these different services, and I don't even know how we got here, but we got here because everyone came along with me and had that belief system with me. So don't hide your purpose, your passion, whether you're the leader or whether you're the person helping the leader or helping the business, because when you're in it together, you create so much more than you could do alone. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to the Breaking Beliefs podcast. I hope you will take a moment to pause before entering back into your day to reflect on this podcast and note 1 to 2 actions you are inspired to do from today's conversation that you could incorporate into your life. To read the full blog and listen back to this episode or any other, you can find them at www.amyvetter.com/Breaking Beliefs podcast and related videos on my YouTube channel. For daily inspiration, follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Amy Vetter CPA. I hope that you will choose to like this and subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and more, so that you can join us for more inspiration on our next episode.